This is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. And I call this meeting of the Beltrami County Board of Commissioners to order. Let's stand and say the pledge if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have no comments to make. Is there any citizens that wish to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
So, 7K approval of the law enforcement center. I was reviewing that and it didn't appear to be any changes in the renewal of that contract or
Yeah, there was.
just the 5 years and then year after, or
There was, they were going to include covering for a couple of our dispatcher costs, I believe, and some and splitting of more costs with us. I think that there was some negotiation that happened and it was more favorable to the county
Okay.
than it had been.
all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the regular agenda. At this time, I'll request a motion to open the public hearing. Is
I'll
there,
second that.
and a second, is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's have some opening comments from staff regarding the renaming of the unnamed lake number 040078.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jody Treat, Beltrami County Auditor Treasurer. I received a petition in January requesting the renaming of an unnamed lake. This petition has to come with, at minimum, 15 certified voters in Beltrami County. So I went through and made sure that there were the correct number of petitioners, which there were. At that point, it got presented to you at the January 16th board meeting to set a public hearing date, and that public hearing date was set for today. Notice for this public hearing went out in the newspaper. It's on the county's website. Direct notice went to the township officers where this lake is associated. It also went to the DNR commissioner and also the local DNR district. The DNR director at that point then provides us or you, the county, an input on whether they believe that this name should go through or not. That letter was in your packet. Did everyone have a chance to read the letter? Perfect. The DNR is approving this or is in favor of this recommendation, summing up their letter. At that point, then you have a public hearing to hear from any citizens in the county. And then once you close the public hearing, there is a resolution. If you agree to renaming this lake, there is a petition or a resolution, I'm sorry, that you would pass that then that gets sent to the DNR. That's the process that we've gone through this. The letter and the petition sums up very nicely why they're wanting to rename this unnamed lake and the name they have chosen. The person that brought the petition to me wanted to be able to attend tonight to come up and speak. He was not able to, but he sent me a message that I will read on his behalf. It says, to the Beltrami County Board, It was my wish to be there in person, but we have our first grandchild being born today unexpectedly. My brothers and I would honor our father by naming a lake we grew up on and learned hunting, fishing, trapping from our dad. He was nationally known biologist who worked 32 years for Minnesota, 10 years for Texas, and several years for the federal government. He did community work and helped many in the community. On a side note, our mother was the first WIC hospice nurse in Beltrami County with Ginny Wickstrom. Ross Ayer also painted Dad hunting on this lake. Please consider this application in effect honoring both. Signed, Tom Jessen. That's all I have for opening comments. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, we can move to public comment.
All right, is there anyone that would like to speak to this? This is a time for, please approach the podium and give us your name and address, please.
I'm Steve Carlson, Turtle River, Minnesota. I'm just here representing Tom for the very same reason that she said. I've known Bob and Edie Jessen my entire life. They live on Turtle River Lake and I live on Turtle River Lake as well. They were strong advocates for the area. They owned, I think, close to 80 acres out there, and this lake, I believe, is on their land. And I would just highly advocate for renaming it Jessen Lake. It would be appropriate and a great honor to both of them. They have since passed away, but I think it would be a real good thing.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody have any questions for Steve?
Thank you for coming, Steve, and speaking on their behalf.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, when it's appropriate, I would like to be the one to make the motion for this, as it's in my district, and I actually took over for Bob on the town board.
I have to make sure I ask about 3 times. Is there
Yes.
anyone else that would like?
Oh, somebody online?
Yeah,
Oh.
okay, great. Please state your name.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, my name is Pete Boulay. I represent the State Geographic Names staff of the Department of Natural Resources, 500 Lafayette Road, St. Paul. And thank you for having this public hearing today and cooperating with our office. Minnesota Statute 83802 designates the State DNR Commissioner to serve as the Minnesota representative for the United States Geographic Names Board, so that there's no conflict between state and federal names for geographic features. In other words, one feature, one name for both state and federal use. That process includes today's public hearing, where any legitimate name may be considered from the public, given it doesn't violate the guidelines set forth in Minnesota Statutes 83A or the federal principles, policies, and procedures. And that may be a new name or change of name of the basin, or no change at all. Pending on the county board decision today, the DNR would accept the name Jessen Lake. The only thing I might add is that the federal guidelines has a 5-year waiting period after somebody's deceased. So the state could work on the process now, but it might take a little while for the final federal process to be completed in this case. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have questions for Pete? Pete, thank you very much for joining us today. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this topic? Anyone else that would like to speak on this topic? Going once, going twice. Anyone else want to speak on the topic? At this time, is there any final comments that you would want to make? Jody, no? Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Then at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
First, we'll close the public hearing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Please. Is there a second? Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is now closed. Now,
Now, I'll make a motion that we approve the renaming of the lake to Jessen Lake. And as I mentioned briefly earlier, I actually took over for Bob on the town board in our township way back when I was newly into the town board. So I think this is a very good additional honor for him. So I'm
good.
glad to be able to do that.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. All right. Moving on to timber action results. Thank you, Steve.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I guess I should introduce myself, Dick Moore, Natural Resource Management Director. I forget about that for the people at home. First off, we'll talk about the timber auction, and I think everybody got the copy of this, or is it gonna go up on the board so I can see where we're at, please? Thank you, Diane. You do a great job. I don't think it's that, well, that's okay. We can go over the timber auction. Just so you know, I gave you 3 different sheets. First page kind of talks about who purchased them, just so you have an idea of who our loggers are out there. Sometimes you might not know all the names, but you get an idea. There are some of the different logging contractors that we have on the first page. Second page talks about the auction itself back in December. It's been 2 months already since we had this, but it was a very successful auction. We sold everything that we offered, and we generated a revenue of $410,000. And those will be recognized when they harvest. You know, we only get 15% of that now, but then it gets recognized when they actually do the harvesting out in the woods. And then on the last page, kind of wanted to show you the whole year. And this is up. If you look at the bottom line, our grand total is 1.5 million, $1,569,000 and change. That's up. Our past few years have been about 1.1 million or 1.3 million. So we're up about 15 to 20% higher than that, which is a very good situation to be in. There's quite a demand. The aspen, there's always demand, but what's really picked up is red pine. Red pine has kind of increased those values quite a bit. So we're kind of in a good situation there. And so that's why I kind of want to let you know that will look good in the future. As these do get harvested, we'll start to realize those revenues. So any questions on that? And again, my last auction is going to be April. So if anybody would like to attend that, I know John's been to one, and Richard's, Commissioner Carlson and Commissioner Anderson, I'm sorry, have been to a couple of those if you want to see how it goes on that.
Dick, do you have the date on that?
The first Tuesday in April. They should have known which,
That's okay.
Usually at 9 o'clock then?
yes.
Okay, so it'd be the same day that we have
The first Tuesday is a sealed bid, the Thursday. At
Thursday.
9 o'clock. So is that the 2nd and 4th of April? We have the sealed bid on the 2nd
Okay,
Tuesday, and then the oral bid on the 4th.
okay, thank you.
There. So you bet. And
And
next-
Dick,
go ahead.
Dick, one of the things that I just wanted to make mention is that I've been around Solway all my life, and I don't think I've ever seen so many trucks back to back coming down to, used to be Northwoods Fraser now. Yeah, so the bids may went out, but they really are producing now, hopefully to beat the road restrictions or what might come on.
You know, I think Douglas County, Wisconsin and Carleton County put on road restrictions
Yeah.
recently. And you know, for this type of a winter, which is beyond belief, it's been quiet. We haven't heard too much on things. So they seem to be out there harvesting in areas that support it. You know, the
Yeah.
staff's out there always keeping an eye on making sure we're not rutting anything up or such. But I think the woods is kind of hanging in there, you know,
Good.
so far so good.
Hasn't it been a little bit of a challenge for those that need to traverse the swamps though?
That's where they haven't not froze down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they seem to be moving around and we haven't heard too many complaints.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say complaints, but just frustrations
Yeah.
is a
there you
better
go.
word I should probably say. So anything else about the auctions?
Anything else? Okay,
Otherwise, I feel like this long awaited numbers that the county board wanted to see. And so, yeah, I should open an envelope and do this, but
Have a big check or something.
yeah, like the golfers. Our 2023 apportionment, you know, that's what we earned last year, was $871,850. So that's revenues over expenses. That's how much we made. And then on the next page, you can see how much that has gone up over the previous years. You know, we were kind of struggling along at 1.2, or excuse me, about the 700,000, and even last year was only 585,000. So 872 is a nice number to come into. So using that figure, and you can kind of see the graph there and you've got it on your computer. Using that figure, I think everybody does know we have to follow state statute is how that gets distributed. And I kind of give a breakdown of $100 to help people kind of visualize a little bit better. The first 30% and then the next 20% and onwards. But we'll get to the big numbers here, which would be the next slide. And I had a chance to talk to County Administrator Barry about these figures, and I think I've kind of talked to a couple, 3 commissioners just to kind of asking about where we were going to land. And so what we arrived at is the first 30% is split between that 65,000 that'll go to county development and the 196,000 that'll go to timber development. And that was a number that we thought hopefully the board will be able to live with. And then you can see 174,000 went to parks, 174,000 will go into our general revenue. Then the townships and cities will get 87,000 and school districts will get 174,000 of that. So that was what Tom and I had a chance to kind of go over. And like I said, hopefully that's acceptable to the county board, and those reforestation costs continue to go up. But my staff has been telling me it should go down a little bit because we're actually not harvesting quite as much pine as we used to. So we shouldn't have to do quite as much reforestation there. And then just to give you some township ones to help you, the commissioners out to know what townships. Turtle River was the winner this year. That's where we had the most revenues, followed by Roosevelt, Alaska, Sugar Bush, and Eccles. And some of those are in there year after year because they do have quite a bit of tax profit and land in them. And then Commissioner District and Commissioner Carlson, I didn't do this to, I didn't do this on purpose. It just
You've done
happened
it
that
before.
way.
It's okay.
Yeah, I hope you're still supporting me after this, but as you can see, Commissioner Gasvig and number 1 and Commissioner Sumner had the highest amounts there. And usually it's between District 3 and District 1, Commissioner Anderson and Gasvig, Commissioner Gasvig, because that's where most of our land is. But Commissioner Sumner, you won this year for things going back to your townships. And then obviously Commissioner Carlson, Commissioner Gould, those are much more city oriented land bases, so you don't nearly see the revenue there. And I'm getting there so we can get to the questions. And then city distribution, Wilton, we sold the one house in Wilton. So that that's where they're getting the $3,600, which is probably pretty good for Wilton. And then Bemidji got a small amount. And then 3 Island Park, all we did was we sold a sale in December. So it hasn't been harvested yet. So all this is reflecting is a 15% down on that sale. And then the school districts, like I say, 141,000 in Bemidji, that has to easily support at least 1 position, maybe 1.5 teachers there. And you can see Black Duck got 23,000 and Kellier got 9,800. And then the next thing to show you, Aspen actually went down a couple dollars this year, but as you can see, the general trend from 2019 through 2023, it is on the upward swing. So I think it might have just been a little hiccup, and let's hope it continues on at least where it's at or a little bit higher as we move forward on that. But like I said, Aspen being down a little bit, the red pine is what's really kind of picking up some of the slack there. And the last slide, I kind of want to show you what's real optimistic here. The increased stumpage prices, like I say, in the last 2 years are going to be reflected in 2024 and 2025. And then we already received these amounts in January. We sure would have liked to see this 269,000 in December from last year, but we didn't get it. But we got 269,000 in gravel royalties, which we haven't had that in years. We maybe every 3 or 4 years we get royalties. So we're already 269,000 up. Well, we put 10% into reclamation. Just so you know, if anybody ever asks, 10% of what we receive in royalties, we put in a reclamation fund should we ever want to reclaim a gravel pit. And then the DNR is actively working on purchasing 3 parcels at the extreme north end of the county, and that would be another $250,000. I sure hope that gets completed this year, because that would sure help the coffers a lot if that can
Mr. Chair,
happen.
so whereabouts is the extreme northern Beltrami County?
They're closer to Canada than they are to us, and they're almost in that I think they're all in that upper tier. of townships. I don't have it right at my beck and call here to be able to answer that, but I'll email you in the morning. How does that sound?
Okay.
I'll
Is there a specific purpose that the state has for that?
Well, it's up in that Red Lake game area. I think they just want to consolidate some more property within the area that they've got up there. Because it is all adjacent to state-owned Red Lake game parcels. So it helps consolidate that.
Okay.
And otherwise, I don't know the other reasons other than just habitat conservation, I guess I'd say. You know, more room for the deer and the wolves to roam, but we're not gonna touch that topic here. But that's all I've got. I think it's encouraging, and like I said, next year is gonna look a lot better for those two reasons. Because that doesn't even include any timber revenues yet, and that's gonna be above and beyond that $500,000 that there's a nice bump that we're not used to having on these.
Does anyone
So
have
with
any
that,
questions?
If I have any, I'm here to help answer any questions.
Any questions for Dick? Tim?
Mr. Chair, maybe Tom might be able to help. So I know a few months ago, we were talking about the county development fund, and so there was $65,000 that was allocated to that fund. So I know we asked that portion of the meeting if we want to talk about allocation or what we want to do, you know, with this money. I don't know if that's going to be at a future work meeting topic or not, but I would like to have a conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think you're within your rights to have that conversation now, since we are talking about apportionment, and the Natural Resources Director and I, as he alluded, have had the conversation around the apportionment values, and the recommendation that we're making is about $65,331 to the fund. Now, keep in mind the fund prior to this is at zero. I don't know if we want to run it down to zero again. You certainly could, and then that would essentially make eligible the entire amount I just mentioned. Or if you want to back it down just a little bit, you know, maybe to 60,000 or 62,000 or something, a little bit in the fund, you could do that as well. But I would appreciate some direction on what the amount is that you'd like, and if you want me to go ahead and solicit requests for that fund, which is kind of what we intended a few months ago. We could just kind of start that process now with some direction. I usually include the amount so folks know how much, you know, is in the pot. That sometimes helps them determine whether or not it's worth going through the application process or not. But it would be helpful for me if you could identify the timing of that, if that's something you wanted to pursue now or at some point this year, or just take a year off, you could do that as well. And if so, how much of the 65,331 you'd like to maybe put to the program for the upcoming?
Joe?
Mr. Chair, I just want to share that I appreciate the recommendation of a little over 65,000 for county development. I think that's an appropriate number to work with as far as getting some economic development and tourism grant dollars out there for our community. So I would support the recommendation as presented.
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering about the mineral funds and that land sale. Those wouldn't be typically monies that we would put into the development fund, would they?
Well, it goes into our tax forfeited revenue
So,
fund. So yes, those numbers that I gave before will be numbers that are gonna show up next year.
Maybe next year.
Is
And-
already,
okay.
yeah.
So as far as what, my reason for asking that is, of course, Tom was saying, bringing it down to zero. Well, if we've got close to $500,000 coming in, or actually over $500,000 coming in next year, could we then use that to help replenish that fund or not?
In discussions with Administrator Barry, and I don't want to set the next person up who's standing in my shoes, but it should be a very good year. And I think the goal that all of us have is we'd love to have a balance in both the reforestation accounts
Right.
and this economic development account to move forward. And we're hoping next year we'll do that. If we can make, like I say, I don't want to promise something and something go really haywire.
We're rebuilding some of the reforestation this year, right?
Well, no, it's
Oh.
gonna be tight still. It's-
Because the costs have gone up? Because
Yeah.
we used to do less than that, I
The
thought.
last 2 years I've had to take from other funds to
Okay.
pay for it, so,
Cost is really-
but
Yeah,
you know, next year, hopefully if there's an extra few hundred thousands of dollars, that would give a heck of a lot more to be able to
Okay.
distribute to both these. And like I said, I think the goal is if we could get a balance at these at the end of every year, it would sure make everybody's lives more comfortable.
Any other questions for Dick? Any comments that you would like to make, Tom?
Mr. Chair, I did have one other question. It was just the mineral, where did that mineral money come from? Was there a specific one pit or some, or where did that money come from?
That came from highway projects.
Right,
When
but,
the highway lets out bids, sometimes they will say you can use this pit on tax forfeited lands
uh-huh,
because it helps the county save money because the contractor's accessing a pit a little closer than probably they would have to go. So that's what happens is they get a big project. This is the money that they're paying the county for the material they used on the project.
okay,
And that's why it's kind of hit or miss from year to year. But Bruce did say we got another one coming up that might show up in 2025 again. And so this replaced a little bit of the land sales that we've kind of backed off on until we find out more from the legislature, this spring, but that's where it comes from.
okay, thank you.
Tim, did you have another question?
Yeah, you know what? Personally, I would like to take a year off from making any allocations. Just for the fact that we're at a zero balance and I just don't know how fiscally responsible it would be to make any distributions with such a low fund. So it's kind of partly why over the years I wasn't really allocating, you know, my entire allocation that I was able to, because I felt like we were kind of depleting when we were starting to see that trend of a decline. So I wouldn't be in support of an allocation this year unless there is some sort of extreme situation that would warrant an allocation, but
If I'm not mistaken, I think our first order of business is to take care of the resolution for the apportionment generally. And then once we have that accomplished, then we would know we would have the 65 and then we can discuss that. So I would entertain a motion at this time to approve the resolution. If anyone wants to make that,
I make that motion.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion's been made in a second to approve a resolution for setting the apportionment figures for 2023 tax forfeited net revenues to be distributed into 2024. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we can move on to discussing what you want to do with the 65 and change. We've already heard from Tim. Anybody else?
Well, Mr. Chair, I shared my comments that I'm supportive.
If Craig or
I guess my comment is that it looks like it's going to be a good future coming up the next year or two. And I think we kind of alluded to folks that were used to using some of this development money to keep their projects going and to enhance it, that I assume that we were going to, if we could, put some money toward that. So I would be in favor, being the future looks good, that we go ahead and I don't know, what did you say, Joe?
Well, he was saying the whole amount, I believe, the 65,
Right.
31.
Oh,
Yeah.
and as far as I'm concerned, 60,000 and leave some for change.
Craig, any thoughts?
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking along the same lines. I was thinking a little less, but I don't, what, didn't we do the last time that we did? Didn't we do 45,000?
It was pretty low, it was under 50.
Yeah. And so I was thinking 45 or 50,000, but
It doesn't, to me, I think we just need to send
To
it
do
out,
something
but
anyways.
we need to make a decision so Tom can get that letter out.
right.
Dick?
Commissioner Carlson, Chair, if you don't have any more questions for me, I just want to thank you for your continued support. And I would invite you, May 31st is the day I'm shooting for. I invite you, if you ever want to pick my brain or learn anything more about some things that you might not feel that you need to learn more about, please stop in the office and I'll help out as much as I can.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
appreciate it. So I'm going
Mr.
once,
Chair.
give it 50, 65, 50, 50.
Yeah, here, and I can hear.
I had a question for Tom. Is it what's the likelihood that throughout the year, all of a sudden someone comes to the board and it's like this, man, it'd be nice if we had $5,000 for that,
Mm.
whatever that is. Does that ever happen, or does this only happen this one time a year out of that development fund?
This is part of a program that's an annual competitive application-based program. So we wouldn't, we had typically not.
I just
done
wanted
that.
to make sure we didn't need to save something for any kind of a special
Sure.
occasion. Okay.
Sure.
I guess I'd be in favor of at least 50. It would leave a little cushion because of the good news for next year. But if someone wants to make a motion, I would entertain a motion for the dollar amount that we would appropriate.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for 60,000.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded for 60,000 for development funds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. You have 60,000 to work with, Tom.
Thank you, sir. And I'm under the impression that you want me to go ahead and start this right away, not to
Please.
wait,
Yep.
skip a year. Okay, perfect.
So, Mr. Chair, so since I voted against it, does that mean that I can't make any allocations?
You're not getting any.
806 that
We got 15,000 apiece. You're out of luck. No.
Is there any other items? Let's move on to legislative and lobbying issues. Let's start with Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, NACO is next week. I was reviewing my schedule for next week. It looks pretty busy. Set up a meeting with Congressman Stauber's office, so looking forward to that. And so I'm trying to just make the best use of my time out there. So yeah, that's it for the legislative. Commissioner's report. When did we last meet? I had a Northwest Juvenile Center meeting, opioid meeting. Seems pretty busy. Jail committee meeting. Yeah, it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, which is good because it made time go by pretty quick. So with that, that's my report. Thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, the one thing that it's impressed me a lot was, having the opportunity to, visit the, veterans home again. And this time when it's completed, it was pretty impressive, and folks will have an opportunity for a good home. And I just, look like so many people in the area look forward to when they can start. And I'm hoping it's, sooner than later.
Shane was here earlier and he mentioned February 14th. They actually got the letter that they were
They
looking
did?
for.
Oh,
And so I believe that they'll start on February 14th.
I hope so.
Yeah,
It's a good deal.
Craig Gang?
sure. As Commissioner Summer alluded, I'm fairly busy. We had quite a few finance committee meetings for the jail project at a Mississippi Headwaters Board meeting. Pretty much standard stuff there. Got re-voted in as the vice chair there. We had our Jazz Bay board meeting, had all the local government units there to review the initial response from the state on our custom zoning for the airport. And we all agreed to have the city to manage any variances and stuff for any of the entities within the Jazz Bay board. And then I had my quarterly Cass Lake Rural Fire meeting and got recommitted as the chair there. So.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Joe?
Mr. Chair, recently I attended a NACO Economic Development Committee meeting that I'm a member of, KRLS Library Systems Board meeting, an AMC board meeting / training for new members. I'm serving as the alternate for District 2. Rick Holland is the director on the board representing our region. And I anticipate filling in for him at times. And also I had a Joint Powers Natural Resources Board meeting recently, and they voted me in as the vice chair of that entity, where we mostly shared our disdain for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So, with our application and landfill issue there. So hopefully we can continue to put pressure on the commissioner there as county commissioners and make some progress soon. I've been in communication recently with a member of Amy Klobuchar's staff on seeking some federal funding assistance on all of the projects that we're all familiar with. So that's it.
All right. Richard and I had Beltrami County Extension meeting in between since last time. So we had our new member did come. Remind me of her name.
Oh, wait, no.
Anyway, so yeah, so we had a new member there. That was good. I continue to work a lot with Northern Township on their septic system. So I attend a lot of their meetings. We have another one this coming Thursday, discussing alternatives. And so we're still moving forward. They're still moving forward with that, and I'm trying to give them as much assistance as I can. Newsletter committee met, and so Diana is working diligently on getting that out. I had the honor to have breakfast with Senator Klobuchar last Friday. Or was that already a week ago Friday? No, I don't remember. Time goes by so fast. But as your chair of the board, I was invited to that breakfast, and I was able to talk about our jail project and knowing full well that they probably aren't going to come up with money for bricks and mortar. I was really trying to hit on our programming and see if we couldn't get some federal dollars for our programming. Craig mentioned the JASB. We met, Craig and Tom and I met with Carl Sanderson and just kind of fine tuning the spend rate, which is what's really been helpful for Bruce at Ellers to help make it just, and for the finance committee to make recommendations about the bond. And then Richard and I were at Prime West last week and we set our budget there. It doesn't look like we're going to have nearly as many dollars for community reinvestment as we had this last year, but there might be some. But Prime West is an exceptional year. It was funny because I was talking to the individual that kept wanting one of us to be the judge at the 29th meeting. I mentioned, she said, well, you guys are all out of time. I said, well, I don't know about the others, but I'm going to be at a Prime West meeting. You're on that board. I love Prime West. And I said, I'll make sure I tell them. So she was very happy about Prime West. But other than that, that's it for me. Next meeting will be February 20th. Anything else, anyone else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Holy buckets. Done before 6.
Yeah. You told her Prime West, not Prime Rib, right?